The bedroom had become a battlefield of silence. For 6 months now, my wife and I had been living like strangers under the same roof. Every night, I'd reach for her hand beneath the covers, only to feel her pull away with some excuse. Too tired, headache, stressed about work. The rejections had piled up like stones, building a wall between us that grew higher with each passing day. I tried everything. Romantic dinners that she'd pick at while scrolling through her phone. Weekend getaways she'd cancel at the last minute because of urgent work issues. Flowers that would wilt on the kitchen counter, unacknowledged. Each attempt at connection was met with the same cold indifference, the same distant eyes that looked through me rather than at me. "We need to talk," I'd said one evening, my voice careful and measured. "I feel like we're drifting apart." She'd barely looked up from her laptop. "You're being dramatic. I'm just busy with this new project at work. You know how demanding my job is." But it wasn't just the job. I'd noticed the changes, the extra care she took with her appearance on workdays, the secretive phone calls she'd take in the other room, the way she'd smile at her screen when certain notifications came through. And then there was the name that kept appearing. Daniel, her new co-worker. Daniel this, Daniel that. Daniel's ideas, Daniel's jokes, Daniel's insights. I'm not a jealous man by nature, but I'm not blind either. The way her face lit up when she talked about him, the same light that had long since disappeared when she looked at me, it told a story she wasn't willing to admit. I'd seen the messages once, purely by accident when she left her phone on the counter. Nothing explicitly inappropriate, but the tone, the emojis, the late-night conversations about nothing in particular, they all painted a picture I didn't want to see. "Are you happy?" I asked her one night, the question hanging in the air between us like smoke. She'd shrugged, not even bothering to meet my eyes. "I'm fine. Why are you always trying to create problems where there aren't any?" That's when I realized she'd already checked out of our marriage. The woman I'd loved, the woman I'd built a life with, had become a ghost haunting our home. She was physically present but emotionally absent, and nothing I did seemed to reach her anymore. Then came the invitation to her company's annual gala. It arrived in a crisp envelope, gold lettering announcing an evening of celebration and networking. She'd tossed it on the kitchen table with unusual enthusiasm. "You're coming to this, right?" she asked, and for the first time in months, there was something like interest in her voice. "It's important for my career. All the senior management will be there." I studied her face, seeing the calculation behind her eyes. This wasn't about wanting me there, this was about appearances. She needed the perfect accessory for her professional image, the devoted husband, the stable home life, the picture of success both at work and at home. "Sure," I said simply, watching as relief flooded her features. The weeks leading up to the event were more of the same. She'd stay late at the office, supposedly preparing for presentations. She'd come home smelling of cologne that wasn't mine, her lipstick slightly smudged, her explanations rehearsed and hollow. Each lie drove the knife deeper, but I said nothing. I simply observed, stored away each small betrayal, and waited. 3 days before the gala, I made a decision. If she wanted to play the part of the perfect wife for an audience, she'd have to earn it. No more would I be the convenient prop in her performance, the supportive husband she could trot out when it suited her needs while treating me like an inconvenience in private. As I pressed my tuxedo and polished my shoes, a calm settled over me. I wasn't planning anything dramatic or cruel. I was simply done pretending that everything was fine. If she wanted to dance, she'd have to face the music she'd been playing for months. The hotel ballroom glittered with chandelier light and ambition. My wife had spent 2 hours getting ready, transforming herself into a vision of elegance in a deep blue gown that hugged her curves. I noticed she'd chosen the dress I'd once said was my favorite, though she'd packed it away years ago claiming it no longer fit. Tonight, apparently, it fit perfectly. "We should make a good impression," she'd said in the car, her hand briefly touching my knee, the first voluntary physical contact in weeks. "Stay close to me. I want to introduce you to some important people." I'd simply nodded, noting how her voice had shifted into a tone I hadn't heard in months. Warm, engaged, almost affectionate. The performance had already begun, even with no audience yet. As we entered the ballroom, her transformation was complete. She looped her arm through mine, pressing close in a way that would have thrilled me months ago. Now, it felt like a costume she'd put on along with the dress and jewelry. Her smile was radiant as she guided us through the crowd, stopping every few feet to greet colleagues. "This is my husband," she'd announce with practiced pride, squeezing my arm. "Couldn't imagine being here without him." I played along initially, shaking hands and making polite conversation. But I watched her, really watched her, and saw how her eyes constantly scanned the room. She was looking for someone. When her gaze finally landed on a tall man near the bar, Daniel, I presumed, her grip on my arm tightened almost imperceptibly. He was younger than me, athletic build, expensive suit. When our eyes met across the room, something flickered in his expression. Guilt, perhaps, or recognition that I wasn't just an abstract concept anymore but a real person standing in front of him. "Dance with me," my wife said suddenly, pulling me toward the dance floor where several couples swayed to a jazz quartet. I stopped walking. "I don't think so." Her smile froze. "What?" I said no, thank you. My voice was polite, neutral, the same tone I'd used to decline a second helping at dinner. She laughed, but there was an edge to it. "Don't be silly. Come on." She tugged at my hand, but I remained firmly planted. "I'm not really in a dancing mood," I said, gently extracting my hand from hers. "You go ahead if you'd like." Confusion and irritation warred across her face as she tried to maintain her composure. A few colleagues were starting to notice our exchange. "We always dance at these things," she hissed through her smile. "Do we?" I met her eyes calmly. "I don't recall you wanting to be close to me lately. Seems odd to start now." The color drained from her face. She understood. The message was clear, delivered quietly enough that only she could hear but firmly enough that there was no mistaking it. "We'll talk about this later," she said, her voice tight. "Will we? That would be a nice change." She turned sharply and walked away, her heels clicking against the marble floor. I watched her approach a group of female colleagues, immediately slipping back into her charming persona, though I noticed her laughter was a bit too loud, her gestures a bit too animated. Throughout the evening, she made several more attempts. Each time, I declined with the same polite firmness. When she tried to pull me into conversations with her superiors, introducing me as her amazing husband, I'd smile and excuse myself after brief pleasantries. When she suggested we get drinks together, I reminded her I was fine with the water I already had. The most telling moment came when the company president gave a speech thanking everyone for their hard work. My wife stood beside me, and halfway through, she reached for my hand. It was a move calculated for the cameras that were documenting the event, I'm sure. I let her fingers brush mine before casually moving my hand to adjust my tie. Her jaw clenched. "You're embarrassing me," she whispered. "Am I?" I kept my eyes on the stage. "That's interesting. I wonder how I felt all those nights you couldn't be bothered to come to bed. Or the weekends you cancelled our plans. Or the hundreds of times you made me feel like I didn't exist. This isn't the time." "No, it never is it?" Around us, I could sense people starting to notice the tension. Her friend from accounting glanced our way with raised eyebrows. Daniel, I noticed, had been carefully avoiding our section of the room all evening. The turning point came during the awards ceremony. My wife's department was being recognized for their quarterly performance, and she was called to the stage as part of the team. I watched from our table as she accepted a plaque, her smile brilliant and confident. When she returned, she leaned down to kiss my cheek, another performance for the surrounding tables. I turned my head slightly, so her lips barely grazed the air beside my face. Her eyes flashed with anger, but she couldn't make a scene. Not here. Not in front of her carefully curated professional image. She sat down rigidly, her posture perfect but her hands gripping her clutch so tightly her knuckles had gone white. "What exactly do you want from me?" she whispered fiercely. "I want exactly what you've been giving me for the past 6 months, I replied calmly. "Nothing. You're acting like a child." "I'm acting like someone who's tired of being treated like he doesn't matter except when there's an audience to impress." Before she could respond, one of her colleagues approached, Sarah, a woman she'd mentioned working closely with. "You two are so cute together," Sarah said warmly. How long have you been married? 12 years, I said before my wife could answer. Though recently, it feels like we're living in different time zones. My wife's laugh was brittle. He's joking. We're fine. Better than fine. Really? I turned to her with a pleasant smile. When was the last time we had an actual conversation? One where you weren't texting someone else or working on your laptop? Sarah's smile faltered, sensing the undercurrent. Well, I'll let you too. I should go find my husband. As she hurried away, my wife's mask slipped entirely. Stop it. Right now. Stop what? Telling the truth? I thought honesty was important to you. Or does that only apply when it's convenient? She stood abruptly, grabbing my arm. We're going outside. Now. I allowed her to lead me through the French doors onto a terrace overlooking the city. The cool night air was a relief after the stifling ballroom. She whirled on me, her chest heaving. What the hell is wrong with you? You're ruining everything. I'm ruining what, exactly? Your performance? Your chance to show everyone how perfect your life is. This is important to me. My career. And what about our marriage? When was that last important to you? She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. You don't understand the pressure I'm under at work. Then explain it to me. Talk to me like I'm your partner instead of some stranger you're obligated to live with. I do talk to you. No, you don't. You talk at me. You give me logistics and schedules and excuses. But you don't talk to me. You save your real conversations for Daniel. The name hung between us like a bomb. Her face went pale, then flushed red. There's nothing, we're just colleagues. Don't. My voice was quiet but firm. Don't insult me by lying. I'm not blind, and I'm not stupid. I see how you light up when he messages you. I see how you dress for work now versus how you dress for me, which is to say, you don't. Not anymore. Tears welled in her eyes, but I couldn't tell if they were genuine or part of another performance. You're twisting everything. You're making something innocent into. I'm not making anything into anything. I'm just finally responding to how you've been treating me. You wanted distance? You've got it. You wanted me to stop trying to connect with you? Consider it done. You wanted to pretend we're strangers who happen to share an address? Well, congratulations. That's exactly what we are now. So what? This is revenge. You're going to humiliate me at my company event. I'm not trying to humiliate you. I'm simply matching your energy. You've been emotionally absent for 6 months. Tonight, I'm just making it visible. If you don't like how it looks from the outside, imagine how it's felt from the inside. She wrapped her arms around herself, and for a moment, I saw something genuine in her expression. Fear, maybe, or regret. But it passed quickly, replaced by defensive anger. You're being cruel. No, I said softly. I'm being honest. There's a difference. Cruel would be pretending everything is fine, playing the devoted husband while you parade me around like a prop, then going home to the same cold silence. At least this way, we're both being authentic. Through the French doors, I could see people glancing our way. Daniel stood near the bar, his eyes fixed on our terrace scene. When my wife followed my gaze and saw him watching, something in her expression shifted. We should go back inside, she said quickly. You go ahead. I'll be there in a minute. Don't you dare. What? Embarrass you further? That's your concern right now? Not our marriage, not what we've lost, but how it looks to your co-workers. She had no answer for that. When we returned to the ballroom, the atmosphere had shifted. I could feel eyes on us, curious, speculating eyes that had noticed the tension and were hungry for gossip. My wife's face was composed again, her professional mask firmly back in place, but there were cracks showing that no amount of makeup could hide. She excused herself to the restroom, and I found myself at the bar, ordering another water. That's when Daniel approached. Up close, I could see he was nervous, his confidence from across the room evaporating in my presence. Hey, man, he said awkwardly. I'm Daniel. I work with your wife. I know who you are. He shifted his weight. Look, I just wanted to say. I mean, she talks about you sometimes. You seem like a good guy. I turned to look at him fully. He was young, maybe 28, early 30s at most. Ambitious, probably. The type who sees an attractive older woman as a challenge, or maybe validation. Or maybe he genuinely didn't realize what he was stepping into. Either way, I felt no anger toward him, just a tired sort of pity. Does she? I said. Tell me, when she talks about me, does she mention how she refuses to have a conversation with me? How she comes home late every night smelling like someone else's cologne? How she flinches when I try to touch her hand? His face went red. I don't know what you... Of course you don't. Because she's probably told you we're distant. Maybe she said we're having problems, that I don't understand her, that we've grown apart. Am I close? He said nothing, but his silence was confirmation enough. Here's what you don't know, I continued, my voice level and calm. 6 months ago, we were fine. Not perfect, but fine. Then you started working there, and suddenly I became invisible in my own marriage. Now, I'm not saying that's all your fault. It takes 2 people to break a marriage. But you should know that while you've been getting the warm, charming, engaging version of her, I've been getting the cold shoulder and excuses. I never meant to. I'm sure you didn't. But intention doesn't erase impact. Just like I'm sure my wife didn't intend to destroy our marriage when she started giving you the attention she used to give me. But here we are. Daniel looked genuinely uncomfortable now. Good. He should be. For what it's worth, he said quietly, nothing physical has happened between us. That's supposed to make me feel better. Emotional affairs are still affairs. Sometimes they're worse because they're about connection, not just attraction. And connection is what I've been begging for while she's been giving it to you. Before he could respond, my wife appeared at my elbow, her eyes darting between us with barely concealed panic. What are you 2 talking about? Just getting to know each other, I said pleasantly. Daniel was just telling me how much he enjoys working with you. She looked at Daniel, who suddenly found his shoes very interesting. The power dynamic I'd observed before, the easy flotation, the comfortable banter, was gone. In its place was awkwardness and guilt, visible to anyone paying attention. And people were paying attention. Sarah from earlier was watching with interest. A group of senior managers nearby had stopped their conversation to glance our way. The gossip mill was churning, and my wife knew it. I think I'm going to head out, Daniel said abruptly. Early meeting tomorrow. Nice to meet you, man. He practically fled. My wife's carefully constructed evening was falling apart in real time. She'd spent months building whatever was happening with Daniel, and now, in one night, I'd held up a mirror to it, not through dramatic accusations or public scenes, but simply by refusing to participate in her pretense. Happy now? She hissed at me. Not particularly. Are you? She had no answer for that either. The rest of the evening was torture for her, I could tell. Every interaction was strained. Her laugh was too loud, her smile too bright. When the dancing resumed, several people asked why we weren't on the floor. She made excuses. My back was bothering me, we'd dance at the next song, but the questions kept coming. Finally, around 10 o'clock, I'd had enough. Not of making my point, but of the entire charade. I stood up, buttoned my jacket, and looked at my wife. I'm leaving. Now. But there's still. I'm done. You can stay if you want. I'm sure Daniel can give you a ride home. Her face went pale. Don't do this. Please. Can we talk about this at home? Like we've talked about things for the past 6 months. No, thank you. I started walking toward the exit. Behind me, I heard her chair scrape back, heard her hurrying after me in her heels. In the lobby, she caught up. Wait. Please, just wait. I stopped, turned. For the first time all evening, she looked truly desperate. I made a mistake, she said, her voice breaking. I know I did. But please, don't leave like this. Everyone's watching. That's what you're worried about? What everyone thinks. My wife stood in the hotel lobby, her carefully applied makeup beginning to run as tears leaked from her eyes. But even now, even in this moment, I could see her glancing back toward the ballroom, worried about who might see, what they might think. Please, she said again. We can fix this. I want to fix this. Do you? I asked quietly. Or do you just want to fix how it looks? That's not fair. None of this is fair. It wasn't fair when you shut me out. It wasn't fair when you gave someone else the attention I was begging for. It wasn't fair when you treated me like a burden except when you needed me to make you look good. So no, we're way past fair. She reached for my hand, and I let her take it, not because I wanted her touch, but because I wanted to see if there was anything real behind it. Her fingers were cold, trembling. I was confused, she whispered. Work was stressful, and Daniel was there, and he listened, and it felt good to be seen, to be appreciated. But it was never supposed to go anywhere. It was just attention, validation, something that made me feel alive when everything else felt routine. And what was I supposed to do while you were feeling alive with him? Just wait patiently until you remembered I existed. I never stopped loving you. Maybe not. But you stopped showing it. You stopped trying. You stopped caring about how your actions affected me. Love isn't just a feeling you have. It's a choice you make every day through your actions. And for 6 months, you chose not to love me. She was crying harder now, genuine sobs that shook her shoulders. A few hotel staff members glanced our way with concern, but I kept my focus on her. I'm sorry, she choked out. I'm so sorry. I didn't realize, I didn't see what I was doing until tonight. Until you stopped playing along with my delusion that everything was fine. That's the problem. You didn't realize because you weren't paying attention. You were too busy with your new connection, your work drama, your perfect image. I became invisible in my own marriage. Tell me how to fix it. Please. I'll do anything. I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw the woman I'd married behind the tears and panic. She was still there, somewhere under the layers of pretense and poor choices. But I also saw the months of loneliness stretching behind me, the hundreds of small rejections, the slow death of intimacy and connection. I don't know if you can fix it, I said honestly. This isn't about one conversation or one apology. You've been building this distance for half a year. You can't tear down that wall in one night just because you finally see it. But I want to try. I want to try so badly. Do you want to try, or do you just want things to go back to how they were, with you having your emotional outlet at work while I wait at home for scraps of your attention? No. That's over. I'll tell Daniel tomorrow that we need to be strictly professional. I'll transfer departments if I have to. I'll do whatever it takes. And what about us? What about the fact that for 6 months, you couldn't stand to be touched by me? That you treated me like I was invisible? How do we fix that? She had no immediate answer, and I appreciated that. At least she wasn't making empty promises without thinking them through. I don't know, she finally said. But I want to figure it out. With you. If you'll give me the chance. I looked past her toward the ballroom. Through the doors, I could see the gala continuing. People dancing, laughing, networking, playing their roles. I'd played mine for long enough. Here's what's going to happen, I said. We're going to go home. Tomorrow, you're going to move into the guest room. We're going to find a marriage counselor, and we're going to do the work. Not just talk about doing the work, but actually do it. And if at any point you decide it's too hard, or you'd rather go back to the easy validation you were getting elsewhere, you need to be honest about it. Because I won't do this halfway. Either we fix this together, or we end it cleanly. I'll do the work. I promise. Don't promise me. Show me. Words are cheap. They've been cheap for months now. Actions are what matter. She nodded, wiping at her tears. Can we go home now? In a minute. There's something you need to do first. What? You need to go back in there and tell your colleagues that we're leaving. That you have something more important than networking to attend to. And you need to mean it. She looked terrified. They'll ask questions. Let them. Your marriage should be more important than your image. For a long moment, I thought she might refuse. But then something shifted in her expression, a resolve I hadn't seen in months. She nodded, squeezed my hand once, and walked back toward the ballroom. I watched through the glass as she approached Sarah and a few other colleagues. I couldn't hear what she said, but I saw their expressions shift from curiosity to understanding. She didn't linger, didn't make excuses. She simply said what she needed to say and walked back out. Done, she said. We drove home in silence, but it was a different kind of silence than before. Not the cold distance of the past months, but something more contemplative. Uncomfortable, yes, but real. Honest. At home, she started to head toward our bedroom, then stopped, remembering. She changed course toward the guest room, pausing at the door. I really am sorry, she said. For all of it. I know that doesn't fix anything, but I need you to know I see it now. I see what I did. Seeing it is just the first step. The question is whether you're willing to do the hard work that comes after. I am. We'll see. She disappeared into the guest room, and I stood in the hallway, feeling the weight of the evening settle over me. I wasn't naive enough to think one night of confrontation would heal 6 months of damage. The road ahead would be difficult, painful, maybe impossible. But at least now, we were dealing with reality instead of pretense. At least now, she knew I wouldn't be a silent prop in whatever story she was telling herself. And at least now, I'd reclaimed my dignity, my voice, my refusal to accept less than I deserved. Whether our marriage survived this was still uncertain. But I knew one thing for sure, I would never again dance to someone else's tune while they ignored mine. Never again would I make myself small to fit into someone's convenient narrative. Never again would I settle for being invisible. The music had stopped, and it was time to decide if we'd learn a new dance together, or if we'd walk away from the floor entirely. Only time would tell which path we'd choose. But tonight, at least, I'd reminded both of us that I deserved better than the cold indifference she'd been offering. And sometimes, that's where healing has to begin, with the simple, powerful recognition that you matter, and you won't accept being treated like you don't. The rest would have to wait for tomorrow.